Now I know most of you guys watching, if not all, are massive car enthusiasts, but you'd be forgiven for never having heard of the Veritas RS3, because frankly, barely anyone has. It's the sort of car that lives in the shadows of Ferrari and Lamborghini, the automotive equivalent of a mythical beast, whispered about by those who know, but never quite getting the recognition it deserves. And that's a shame, because this thing was absolutely mental. Take one look at it and tell me it doesn't belong on the cover of a comic book. The bodywork looks like a shark in mid-lunge, an aerodynamic missile that wants to devour everything in its path. It had no windshield, a removable passenger cover, and a power plant that was frankly too much for something that barely weighed more than a sack of potatoes. And yet, despite its insaneness, if that is a word, it wasn't just a concept car designed to make wealthy collectors drool over renderings. No, this thing was real, and a few lucky maniacs even got to own one. But to understand the RS3, you first have to go back to post-war Germany, where the original Veritas brand made a name for itself by modifying BMWs into full-blown race cars. You see, the story of Veritas begins in 1946, when three former BMW engineers, Ernst Loof, Lawrence Dietrich, and George Meyer, decided that post-war Germany needed some proper performance machines. They started out by rebuilding and tuning pre-war BMW 328s, but before long they were constructing their own cars, using BMW chassis and engines as a base. Their most successful model was the Veritas RS, a lightweight aluminium-bodied racer that absolutely obliterated the competition in the late 1940s. This thing was so dominant that it practically owned the 2-liter sports car class in West Germany, with Karl Kling famously taking an RS to a crushing victory at the Nürburgring in 1948, averaging 100 miles per hour throughout the race. Veritas was so successful that they even became the first German manufacturer to compete in Formula 1. Yes, before Porsche, before even Mercedes got properly involved, there was Veritas. But as it is often the case with these small, race-focused manufacturers, the money ran out. By the early 1950s, financial woes had crushed their dreams, and by 1953 the company was finished. And that's where the story should have ended. Except, half a century later, a group of mad scientists decided to resurrect the name and build something completely unhinged. So in 2001, a company called Vermont AG came up with the idea of reviving Veritas with a modern reimagining of the RS Roadster. The result, the RS3, a car so outrageous that even Lamborghini would have thought, maybe that's a bit much. Now at first, the concept car came with a 6-liter BMW V12, making nearly 650 horsepower, a power figure that would have made it one of the most powerful cars of its time. It was lightweight, it was monstrous, and it looked like it wanted to eat you alive. People were hyped. The plan was to build 30 of them, and potential buyers were lining up. But then, nothing. 8 years of delays, fine-tuning, and most likely financial nightmares followed before a production-ready version finally emerged in 2009. And when it did, there were some big changes. You see, by the time the RS3 finally hit the road, strict emission regulations had killed the original V12 dream. But that didn't mean Veritas had gone soft. Instead, they turned to one of BMW's greatest engines ever made, the S85 5-liter V10 from the E60 M5. This was not some lazy, torque-heavy brute of an engine. No, this thing was pure motorsports, with 507 horsepower, individual throttle bodies, and a stratospheric 8,250 RPM redline. It was essentially a Formula 1-inspired masterpiece stuffed into a barely legal roadster. For transmission choices, you got either a 7-speed SMG or, for the truly brave, a 6-speed manual. Because, you know, a hyper-light, rear-wheel drive, open-top, no-windshield supercar clearly needed to be even more terrifying. And terrifying it was. Weighing just 2,381 pounds or 1,080 kilograms, this thing was lighter than a Mazda MX-5 and could sprint from 0 to 60 miles per hour in just over 3 seconds. For top speed, she could go on accelerating before topping out at 215 miles per hour or almost 350 kilometers per hour. And let's take a moment to appreciate that number. 215 miles per hour in a car that had no roof, no windows, and not even the presence of an interior. At that speed, you wouldn't just be driving, you'd be actively experiencing what it feels like to be a human missile. Anyways, underneath its shark-like body, the RS3 featured a motorsport-grade chassis with a tubeless steel frame and double wishbone pushrod suspension setup from Öhlins. The BT racing braking system ensured that when you finally ran out of courage, massive ceramic discs with 6-piston calipers would hopefully save you from becoming part of the scenery. The body was entirely carbon fiber, the passenger seat optional, and by optional I meant it was literally covered by a removable body panel, because apparently Veritas didn't think you needed anyone screaming in your ear whilst you're doing 200 miles per hour with bugs pelting you in the face like tiny bullets. But that leads me to the question, why isn't this thing more well known? Well, by the time the RS3 finally went into production in 2009, it was already an anomaly, a completely unhinged, no-compromise machine in a world that was quickly shifting towards hybrids and driver aids. And if you still wanted one, you needed deep pockets. Prices started at $490,000, and with custom options, it could go well past the $600,000 mark. But despite the price, all 30 units were sold before they were even built, which proves that there are still people out there willing to pay obscene amounts of money for something truly mental. Encouraged by the positive reviews, Veritas announced plans for future models, including hybrid and fully electric versions. But, as it so often is the case with these small independent brands, it never happened. Veritas eventually faded into obscurity, leaving behind only those 30 cars and a handful of lucky owners who got to experience its madness firsthand. The Veritas RS3 was never going to challenge Ferrari or Porsche for sales. It wasn't practical, it wasn't refined, and it certainly wasn't sensible. But it was pure. A true race car for the road, designed without compromise and built for those who valued raw, unfiltered driving over everything else. And for that, it deserves some recognition. But at the end of the video, please let me know what you guys think of this car. What did you guys think of the video? And if you guys enjoyed this video, please leave a like and subscribe to the channel. Now, if you guys did like this video, you'll most probably like most of my other stuff. So just go through my channel, see if there's something else like. I'll check you guys in the next one. Cheers, eh?